everyone, this is Claudia from codyhouse.co, and today I want to show you how you can use the line height crop mixin that you can find inside the CodyHouse framework. First of all, what's this mixin and when you need it? Okay, if you have a text element inside your web project, like for example in this case here I have an h1 element, you can see that this element is going to have some space at the top of the element itself, and it's mostly because of the line height of the element. Now, that's not usually a problem. It's not a problem to have this space on top of the element, but there are times in which you need to remove it for alignment purposes most of the time, like in this case here. So let's say we have a grid. On one side we have an image, or this is just a block of color with a background color, and on the other side we have our text, and we want the text to be aligned with the image. We don't want this empty space at the top of the text element. And we can use the line height crop mixin to remove this top space. Okay, first of all, you can find this mixin in the mixins global file in the CodyHouse framework. This is the mixin I'm talking about. Basically, this mixin creates a before pseudo element with a negative margin, and this negative margin cuts this space at the top of the text element. So let's use this mixin. Here, this is the element I want to target, this h1 element here. So let's use include the mixin. As argument, we have to pass, first of all, the line height of the element, and then there is this second argument. Let's not pass it for now. You see, this has a default value of 1. We are going to come back to this later. So we need to pass the line height of the h1, and if we go to the typography file in the CodyHouse framework and scroll a little bit, we can see that the line height of the heading element is equal to this CSS variable. So we can use this variable here and pass it to the mixin. Let's go back here, and you see we have removed part of the space at the top of the h1 element. If we analyze the element here, we can see that now the h1 has a before pseudo element that has a top negative margin. But this alignment is not perfect yet. Why is that? I'm not going into the details of that, but that's mostly because when you consider the height of this capital letter here, the L, the H, the C, it's not going to be perfectly equal to the font size. And it's usually just a percentage. And this percentage is the value that we can pass as second argument of the mixin to, let's say, improve this result here. So basically this percentage is what we have called the capital letter. So this is by default 1, so 100%, but we need to pass a better percentage, a better value if we want to cut all the top space. And this value, this is not something you find like you can find somewhere. You have to experiment a little bit, and it really depends on the font family you are using. It's usually between 0.7 and 0.8. In my example, I'm using as a font family Helvetica. Oops, there was a mistake here. And the value for Helvetica is 0.75. If I save, you see now the alignment is way better. We have the same result regardless of the font size of the text. So for example, if I change the font size to a bigger value, you see we still preserve the perfect alignment with image. So I was saying that this value, this percentage here, depends on the font family we use. So for example, if I go to the typography file and I change the font family, let's switch for example to a serif font. Then you see that the alignment is not perfect anymore. And that's mostly because the height of the capital letter here is smaller compared to the one of Helvetica. So basically here I need to pass a value which is a little bit smaller, for example 0.7. And you see now we are back to the perfect alignment. And again, I can change this font size, sorry, and I'm still keeping the alignment. I can even change the line height of the heading element, and you see we still have the same result. That's it. One suggestion here, as this value depends on the font family, I would suggest to create a variable to store it, because I mean it's quite common to change the font family of your website. So if you change it, then you have to go through your code and update this value. While if you have a CSS variable, you just need to update one variable and everything is gonna work fine. So if we go to the typography file, actually here we have in the CodyHouse framework, we have already defined a variable, a CSS variable for that. That's the font primary capital letter. You see there is also a comment on top of it. And we left it to 1, of course, because I mean, it really depends on the font family you are using, but we can change it to 0.7 in this case. And in the mixin, I can pass the variable. Save. And of course, everything is still working fine. Now, what happens if I change again the font family? For example, back to Helvetica. I just need to update this variable here. And you see, everything is working just fine. I don't have to update this line of code here. Okay, of course, I mean, in this case, we have just one font family. If you need to add a secondary font or other fonts, I would suggest to create a different variable for each one of them, so that if you have to update them, again, you just need to change the value of this variable. Okay, that's it for today, and I didn't go through the details of this value here. If you are curious about that, there is a blog post in the CodyHouse blog on Medium, so you can read all the details about that in that blog post. Thank you.